Hey everyone, blessings of the day. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shakka-Ahmose. I am a research specialist, independent, IND, and my subject matter is ancient Egypt and its relationship to Christianity and the Bible, as well as other related subject matters. If this is your first time watching me, then you will probably see and hear things you've never heard before. And okay. So Lewis Roberts said, don't do it. Why not? There's enough falsehood in the world. Don't you think there's some room for truth? Right? I got to put that on the screen. It made me laugh. Hold on a second. This one. Lewis Roberts said, don't do it. And that was really funny. It's got to be done. You know? It's got to be done. I was up here in the Hieroglyph studio the other day just getting some things ready for upcoming broadcast. And apparently some people thought that I was going live. And when I didn't go live, I guess they felt like I jerked them. And it wasn't that at all, people. It was really just that I wasn't going live at that moment. I wasn't doing a broadcast. I was just in the Hieroglyph studio working out some things. So I'm here and I'm going to be here, right? As long as you guys keep showing the platform love and respect, I will be here. No question about it, right? So try not to waste too much time, right? Yeah. To each his own. That's what I say. I'll put it to you like this. If someone doesn't eat at the same restaurant that I eat at, it just means we have different tastes. That's all. You feel me? So I don't get caught up in what other people eat. And I don't get caught up in other people's perspectives and other people's opinions. Because 9 times out of 10, they already have an ideology that they're pursuing. And their ideology is what will color, inform, and instruct how they perceive the facts, right? It will impact how they process the facts. So if it's facts indeed that they're processing. So I don't get caught up in what other people think or believe, even in the so-called scholarship community, there are believers on both sides. And so I just don't get caught up in that. You know what I mean? Louis Roberts, you crack me up, bro. I got to make this guy my host. You got to be my co-host, man. You're funny. I like this guy. He's funny. All right? Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. Hey. Facts. Shout out to my brother Troy. No question. Rap artist extraordinaire in the house. Hotep to the Hieroglyph family. Yes, yes, yes. All day, every day. Right? It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. You know it's coming. Because, sometimes I forget that there's an intro to this. So, yeah, no question about it. Yeah, you know what? I should release that song on YouTube. I probably should. I'll probably do a little video or something for it. Maybe just a little picture or something with it. And put it out so people can have the whole song. Yeah, I probably will do that. So, boy, I tell you, these little Christian apologists, they've been busy since I've been. See, when you guys don't see me, I haven't broadcasted in about a week, only because um, a lot of people have asked me to appear on their podcast, and and what they're offering is quite respectable. So it's there's no need to say no. Sometimes it does get to the point where I had to say no to someone today, because if I keep saying yes, Hieroglyph won't get broadcasted. I'll be on everybody else's platform, and other people will be drawn to those platforms to see me, when in fact I have my own platform. So this is where I have to till the field and till the soil, right here on Hieroglyph. So you're going to see me today, you're going to see me tomorrow, you're going to see me the day after that, day after that, and day after that, as long as the Creator blesses me to be here with you. Okay. And just as an aside, I have to keep my promises, and my first promise is to the Hieroglyph platform. And the promise that I made to the Hieroglyph platform is that, and it's really more for those viewers who really want to show their appreciation for what I do, for the platform itself, that I would show the Cash App slide only twice this evening. Once at the beginning and once at the end, so that way we don't have to be interrupted. Okay. So for those of you who would like to show your appreciation to the platform, because of past broadcasts and even for upcoming broadcasts, this is it. It's really simple. You can support, contribute, and invest in the platform. It's Cash App, $, Shakka-Ahmose. Just go to $ Shakka-Ahmose. And the link will be put at the top, particularly of the YouTube, the YouTube chat. Okay, so that way we don't have to get distracted, and those people, and that way also the platform doesn't have to be denied the support that it needs. Okay, to continue. All right, so going to take care of that right now. In fact, let's do that. So I'm gonna here we go. Okay, so yes, that's me. Yours truly, right? So here we go. Yeah, I'm taking everything in stride. Like, I'm not freaking out that that I don't have my moderators here, or anything like that, because sometimes I get, you what is it? You don't want to get lost on the minors and sacrifice the major for the minors. You know what I mean? So let's see, should we turn it slightly that way? Yeah, I think so. There we go. That way I'm more centered. So yeah. Let's see. Okay. Hey, Simon M. Hey, Miller Bird, peace. Absolutely. Hey, Didi. Absolutely. Peace and power. Black power to the family all day. Absolutely. Okay. Alrighty. So here we go. All right. So, hey, peace, Diamond. Love having you. Okay. So yeah, I've been on quite a few of the platforms lately. Some really good ones. One that I recommend highly is Misinformation Nation and Wisconscious. They're connected to Connected Brands, and I've been appearing on their platform for like the past 2 weeks. Some of that material I'm going to introduce here on the platform because I haven't shown it yet here, and I haven't shared it with my particular audience. So I would be remiss if I shared it elsewhere and didn't share it here, right? So peace, Young Tahuti. All right. Yeah. So and that's the beauty of other channels, and other platforms, is that when there are people who disagree with what I say, you can go and listen to what they have to say, and if it doesn't resonate with you, just cut it off like a bad limb with gangrene. You know what I'm saying? Just cut it off, and keep it moving. Don't get caught up in it. I'm not caught up in it. You got to understand something, particularly in the community that I came from, right? The other community that I used to be a part of. I've always had my haters in that community. Some of them like to smile and pose like they're friends. Really, in fact, Tupac said it best. You got those who act like they're your enemies when they're really your haters. Then you got those who are haters, or those who act like they're your haters, but they're really, I forgot, they're really jealous of. I forgot what he said, was how the thing goes. But bottom line is, you got haters, and I'm no different. I have a lot of haters. There's a lot of people out there who want to be the king of the hill when it comes to scholarship, and I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed even remotely. So, because I know if I had them on camera in front of on a debate, they wouldn't last 5 minutes. I know it and they know it. So I don't get caught up in other people's perspectives. You know what I'm saying? They don't know what I'm working with. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just say that this is episode 3. Episode 3 might actually be contingent upon episode 25. I just haven't gotten to it yet. So while you're here trying to refute me at episode 3, you still have not been exposed to all of the evidence substantiating episode 3. So you're just basically boxing thin air to make noise. Oh, Shakka's wrong. Shakka doesn't know what he's talking about. Shakka. I'm not talking about you. Don't talk about me. Keep my name out your mouth. There's a lot of people out there that really just want that luster of being the one. I'm the come-to man. I'm the go-to man when you want to know something. Bullshit. No, you're not. Right? So, for me, it's about a track record. My track record speaks for itself. Ain't nobody come out the woodwork and crash me on my bum. You know what I'm saying? Hey, India. Now I'm a little more comfortable that you're here. I'm a little more secure. You can at least alert me to anyone that needs to be booted out of here. Right? But yeah, so come on. The way this format is, it's not laid out like a lot of other formats. A lot of other people do their stuff pre-recorded so they can get right to the material, keep going, which just gives it a very smooth feel and a very smooth run. I like to actually interact with my audience, those people who are coming to spend their time with me live. It just gives it more of a group feel. You know what I'm saying? And for those of you who are watching this later on, you're still getting the information. So stick around. I'm going to make it worth your while if this is a topic that you're really interested in. And, what I'm doing is I'm addressing the falsehoods and the lies that pastors, particular pastors, particular Black pastors in the Black community, in the Black apologetics community, in the urban apologetics community, the lies that they tell their congregations and that they tell themselves. And I realize one of the reasons that they are so insistent on these lies is that they live in an echo chamber. So if one says it, they all say it. If one says it, and they say it over and over and over again. Now, it's one thing for you to make a statement thinking that you're telling the truth, right? However, once you've been shown that what you thought was true is an error, and if you repeat that same statement again, then you are lying. And this is what these pastors are guilty of. Eric Mason, his little minions, wannabe pastors like Adam Coleman, and Alfredo Valentin and Vince Bantu and the usual suspects, Damon Richardson, and they all repeat the same lie, vocab Malone, that the Kemetic community got their views from 19th century Egyptomaniacs in Europe, simply because many in our community may be familiar with those authors. Just because we're familiar with those authors doesn't mean that that's where we get our perspective from. So, I mean, and once it's been shown that you're in error and you still repeat that lie, then you are a bona fide liar. Not just a bona fide liar, but a bona fide Christian liar. So if I was Jesus, I wouldn't want these people as my ambassadors because they have a very challenged relationship with truth, right? So they need to let go of that lie that they're telling their Christian congregants that we got these ideas from white people in Europe. And I'm going to show you that in a few minutes, that it's a bona fide lie. They want you to think that the idea of Jesus somehow being affiliated with Egypt as a rationale for the role he plays in the Christian story, they want you to think that that idea started in 19th century Europe with so-called Egyptomaniacs, with pseudo-scholars such as Helena Blavatsky and Percy Graves, who else? Gerald Massey, Alvin Boyd Kuhn, and others. But the mere fact that I heard this pastor, Eric Mason, mention Chancellor Williams in the same sentence with those other names, it told me for a fact he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Like, you would have to be a special kind of stupid to do that. That's like mentioning John F. Kennedy and Genghis Khan in the same sentence. They have nothing to do with each other, like absolutely zero. What does Chancellor Williams and the destruction of black civilization have to do with 19th century white authors? Absolutely nothing. He doesn't even espouse their views. He probably never even read them. So, this is a black man, Chancellor Williams, who graduated from the American University in Washington, D.C., and he was a visiting professor at Oxford University. These retards couldn't make it to the bathroom in Oxford University. But they stand there with their Masters of Divinity fake-ass degrees, and they want to be the arbiters of what is true and what is not. I think it's a pathetic state of affairs, and it's a pathetic situation. But, I like to slow grind. I like to play with my food, so to speak. So every video that they make responding to me, that's just more wood on the fire for me. And I'm going to grab each one of those videos and I'm going to show you individually how stupid these people are. And I can't really find another word to describe them. Well, yes, I can. They're stupid and they're deceitful. So, see, the two are not the same. To be stupid is one thing. To be deceitful is another thing. But to be stupid and deceitful, that is a Christian. Without question. Yes, without question. About these matters. There's a whole lot of Christians out there that are very intelligent in their line of work. If they're a newscaster, if they're a basketball player, if they're a manager of a company or something, they're very, very intelligent in that. But when it comes to this, religion, when it comes to history and religion, they're stupid as the day is long. All of them. Not my fault for pointing out their fallacies. You understand? So, I'm just waiting to well, I wouldn't say that. Somebody said, I don't know who hates Christians more. Shakka-Ahmose or the Nation of Islam. I don't think the Nation of Islam hates Christianity. I think they're undercover Christians, if you ask me, because their leader is a wannabe Christian Baptist preacher. You know who I'm talking about. He's a wannabe Christian Baptist preacher. Dr. John Henry Clark was 100% correct about him in that context. That is how he sees himself, and that's what he's a frustrated wannabe Baptist preacher. And so, yeah, this is just, it is what it is. So, the other reason that I came up is that I came in the studio the other day and didn't actually go live. I was exhausted. I actually sat down to actually do the live. I think that was on the 23rd, right? I actually sat down, fully dressed and everything to do the live. And I was just too tired. I was really my eyes were like falling. And I was like, there's no way I won't be able to read anything. So I just said, just turn it off and just do it tomorrow. So that's what's up. But yeah, so we have about 72 people with us right now. I was going to try to wait till it got to 100 before I got started. But no, they can always run it back. Okay. So again, for those of you who want to support the platform, for those of you who want to keep bringing me back to do these broadcasts, this is the best way to inspire and motivate me. I do not teach for free. Teaching for free is the best way to not be able to pay your bills. Teaching for free is the best way to watch your family go hungry. Teaching for free is the best way to lose your roof over your head or the land that you own. So I don't teach for free. This is a pay-for broadcast. But the kicker is you just pay whatever you want. That's it. Just pay whatever you want. Right? I think that's fair and equitable. Just pay something. Okay? I think if pastors can be paid and become millionaires for teaching lies 52 weeks a year and every day in between, then those of us who teach the truth should be fairly compensated. And if you respect the knowledge, then I expect to see your name and your email and your investment in my Cash App when this is over. Okay? So, yeah, as we used to say in ancient Egypt, fahi irzunu fahi, value in exchange for value. That's it. Okay? So now that that's done, again, $sign Shakka-Ahmose at Cash App. And I look forward to seeing you there. Okay? For those of you who make sizable investments in the platform, I don't miss any one of them. Your name is on a list, and I'm going to double back. And, there's something special for all of you who do that. For those of you who invest 100 and above, without question, your name is on the special list. And I have every intention of making that investment worth your while. So with that said, let's get to why we're here. Okay. We're going to, here, let's do this. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, let me type in the proper page number. Most people don't realize, but my eyesight is just, it's not pretty. Put it like that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so basically we're going to start where we left off. Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to start where we left off. And oh, wait a minute, my bad. I almost did it again. I don't know why I always forget. I have no idea why I always forget. See you in a second. On my own, I ain't never alone. They want to bring me in and bring me to the day that I'm gone. I see so many great things, it's like a king on the stone. I'm looking back on my own. On my own, I ain't never alone. They want to bring me in and bring me to the day that I'm gone. I see so many great things, it's like a king on the stone. I'm looking back on my own. I see it all. Looking back, I see your face. Seen so many great things. Hey, looking at, surrounding myself with the best that this life had to offer on my own. Looking back, on my own, but I ain't never alone. They want to
on, I got these angels running with me, and they with me till the day that I'm gone. I see so many great things, like a king on the throne. I'm looking back on my own. I see it all.
Looking back, I see you there. Seen so many great things. Hey, look at that. Surrounding myself with the best that this life had to offer on my own. Looking back.
Okay, so now that that's done, yeah, I be forgetting that intro, man. I be forgetting that gets. Oh, he said, "Don't forget the intro." My bad, bro. My bad. Yeah, but I didn't forget it. Okay, so there we go. It's on. So, you can tell that to me singing. Yeah, is it really that obvious? Wow. Let me see. I did that song, I think maybe 1999 or 2000. Yeah, I did that song in 2000. Yeah, I sure did. Okay, so it's actually one of my mother's favorite songs that I've done. Okay. So so let's look at this. We're going to start pretty much from where we left off. This is Pastor Jerome Gay Jr. at Vision Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. We mentioned him in the last broadcast. And he's one of these pastors that is parroting the false Christian lie that the Kemetic community. Now, their accusations are probably towards the conscious community. And I hate to say it, but you know, a lot of the accusations that they make toward the conscious community, I would probably say are true. And when I really, really think about it. But I don't identify with the conscious community. I identify with the Kemetic community. And you won't ever hear the Kemetic community extolling the work of Gerald Massey, or and I don't have a problem with extolling Gerald Massey where he is correct, or Alvin Boyd Kuhn where he is correct. Where they are wrong, I discard them. But I do that with all authors. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter who the author is. Where they're wrong, discard it. Where they're right, keep it, quote it, use it, and then back it up with primary sources. So let them argue with the primary source, not with you. Once you proved your point, keep it moving. You're not obligated to stay in there in a conversation with a dummy, unless you choose to. But then that makes two dummies. So, okay. Look, when I debate these pastors, I've been inviting them to come get with me since I've been back on the scene. They got my the main one, we're friends on Facebook. Eric Mason and I were friends on Facebook. If he wanted to debate me, he could just, let's debate. I've already issued an invitation. Let's debate. You debated Jabari. Why won't you debate me? I don't get it. Like, I really don't get it. You know, what's so different about me that they can't, they want to send their little research team after me. Their little corny Alfredo Valentin and whoever he's running with over there. Dude is dumb as the day is long. But I love the fact that he at least tries. He does try with his scholarship. So that's why I'm going to honor him by responding to some of his videos when I get time on my hands. Right now, my first priority is Hieroglyph. And this takes a lot more time than most people realize, know, or understand. Like, putting this together, it really does. I mean, and truthfully, not just that. I mean, I think the thing that really takes my time is just taking care of me. You know what I mean? That's a full-time job. Making sure that I eat right, making sure that I exercise, making sure I get proper rest and all of that stuff. And so that's just what that is. Oh, okay, that's fine. You're coming up next. So so yeah. So this is what this pastor had to say. Let me just make sure I didn't leave that on the screen. because don't want to do that. Yeah. So the question is not will I debate them? The question is will they debate me? That's the question. Will they debate me? One of them had the opportunity to debate me about Horus and Jesus, Adam Coleman, and he ran. He put on his Jesus sneakers and ran. He said we could debate about everything else except Horus and Jesus. I'm like, wait a minute. You talk all this smack on Facebook about Horus and Jesus, but then now that I'm here and we're on the same platform and we could debate it, you don't want to debate it, and we have to debate everything else. But where I come from, that's called running. You ran. You ran. You literally ran. And your community should have been embarrassed behind that. That you ran from the discussion. You ran from the debate. I would have debated you right there on the spot. Off the dome. No PowerPoint. Any of these dudes. I don't need a PowerPoint to defeat them. They're defeated before it's even started. And they know it. They're just trying to prolong the fall. Right? Me, I'm just having fun pushing them on the way down. I want to get my little push in. You know? So I appreciate that, Jay, very much so. I really do. Absolutely. My music is important to me. You heard? So, hey, you know what? The same thing with me, man. Troy, I appreciate that. Yeah, the way that ends, the way that intro ends does something to mine. Does something to mine too, man. Does something to mine too. I think that's why I wrote it, you know? But I don't know. You got to contact them. You know? You have to ask them. You asking me why somebody's scared to debate me? And I have no idea. They are scared because I've called them out. I mean, I've done everything I can to call them out. You know? They actually have a new satellite radio show on Sirius. It's Chris Broussard, who's their godfather. He's like the godfather of the apologetics community. But he's a punk too. That's right, Chris Broussard. I'm telling you, a punk too. Running behind the scenes with all of this. Sanetta told me you asked about me. You had the balls to ask about me, but you ain't got the balls to step to me on some debate shit. Chris Broussard, ESPN, punk ass. You as much of the punk as all the rest of them. Vince Bantu, Eric Mason, you all punks to me. Y'all run around and you debate somebody who you know, with all due respect, let me not even go there. You debate somebody who's not really a debater. Let me just say that. Right? He's a scholar, no question about it. But he's not a debater in my book. I'm entitled to have my own book. In my book, he's not a debater. So my thing is, why don't you come see me? I'm the one that you were all asking about. I'm the one that's had the greatest impact. So you would think that since I'm the one that had the greatest impact, you would think I would be the one they would want to debate. Why would you pass up a chance to show up Shakka-Ahmose publicly? Instead, they're trying to debate me from a distance. So they take my videos, they take the things that I say in my videos, they make little videos, and then they respond. Right? That's punk. That's punk. I ain't got time to. I'm too busy doing other things to stop and respond to your corny feedback, to your corny responses. Your responses are easily destroyable. You know? But it's only 24 hours a day, and my time is valuable. Exceedingly so. You know? So you good, Kareem. Just come on in, right? We already passed the plate around, but you'll have the opportunity to put something in the tray at the end, right? So here we go. What was that he said about Chris Broussard? Nah, Chris Broussard is a bona fide Jesus freak. Chris Broussard is a bona fide Jesus freak. Yes, he is. He's a bona fide Jesus freak. Him and Speech from Arrested Development, he's another one. Remember? Tennessee. Lord, I really been real stressed, down and out, losing ground. One of my favorite records back in 92. I used to play that son up to, I made people sick of it. Because I was, I grew up African-centered. So that song for me was just like, yeah, that's us. And come to find out, Speech from Arrested Development runs with these Christian apologists. Chris Broussard, Eric Mason, Alfredo Valentin. They're all a bunch of Jesus freaks. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, Speech and I, we were going back and forth in the email, and I offered to teach him. And I was like, I'll teach you for free. I get paid thousands of dollars. I literally get paid thousands of dollars to teach people, like a lot of money, right? But I said, you know, when I get to celebrities, I try to say, look, you have a bigger platform, a bigger reach. And if I teach you and you see the value and the validity and the legitimacy of what I'm teaching you, it'll help the message get spread that much more. We can ameliorate a lot of the ignorance to our communities that much more impactful, that much more effectively. So I offer to teach people above a certain celebrity status for, well, it's free, but it's not free. The payment is use your voice and your platform to either, you know, to perpetuate the message by presenting myself, or just, you know, participating in the discourse with me in a public platform so that people can know this is what they need to be hearing, right? And this dude got literally on his Christian arrogance, like, what do you mean you're going to teach me? You know, I could teach you. And I'm like, about this subject matter, no, you can't teach me. You want to teach me about getting a Grammy? You can teach me that. You want to teach me about maybe a recording console, publishing, mechanical royalties, right? Marketing, promotion, you can teach me that. This subject matter, you couldn't teach me if it was your best day and it was my worst day. You couldn't teach me anything. Anything means anything. All capital letters. I've been toiling in this vineyard for going on what seems like, oh, you know, almost 40 years, certainly over 30 years. Absolutely over 30 years. Would you walk into somebody's office who's been doing something for 30 years and you just now being introduced to it and you think you could teach them something about it? What kind of arrogant shit is that? But that's a typical Christian. That's a typical Christian. Arrogance, hubris, false pride. Those are the three main ingredients of Christianity. And deception. Arrogance, hubris, false pride, and deception. Those are the building blocks of Christianity. Those four. Mark my words. By the time this is over, you will see it. I'm going to show it to you personally. You know me. I'm in the show me business, right? I don't into. I'm going to show you. Okay. So let's start where we left off with one of the latest Christian lies, right? That basically that the concept of Jesus somehow being affiliated with Egypt as it pertains to the role he plays in the resurrection story. They say that we get that idea from 19th century white scholars who were Egyptomaniacs, and I've already named them. But as I always say, I do not put things in people's mouths, right? I let people speak for themselves. And though we showed it in the last episode, I think it's worth taking a look at one more time.
They're getting this from the Zeitgeist video that was popular on YouTube. And they're presenting it as scholarship. Because here's what we got to realize. Facebook has given pseudo scholarship and Google scholarship a platform.
Okay, so this unfortunate wannabe scholar, Pastor Jerome Gay Jr., he the Christians are coming to get me. I heard the sirens. I heard the Jesus siren. What they want you to believe is that that's what it said at the end, that they want you to think that the affiliation of Jesus with Egypt comes from 19th century comes from Zeitgeist, which quoted a lot of 19th century stuff. If that's the case, then no one before Zeitgeist, no one before the 19th century should have tried to affiliate Jesus with Egypt if what he says is true. Well, let's see if what he says is true. Let's take a look. So we're still in Isis in the Ancient World by Professor Dr. R.E. Witt out of Queen's Mary College, London University. This is published by Johns Hopkins University Press. So it is a scholarly book, for those of you who don't know. Let's see what he says in chapter 13. He says, Isis was an insidiously dangerous foe for Christian theologians because she was believed to give her worshipers their daily bread. Now, why is that important? Before I don't want to just gloss over that. That's important because one of the things that you guys might not know about me is how I spend my free time, right? So how I spend a lot of my free time, a lot of it, a sizable portion of it is, believe it or not, though I often speak in a disrespectful tone about the urban apologists community and the pastors and this, that, and the third, and Christians in general, what I try to do as a scholar is I try to first and foremost show respect to the subject matter and to any listening audience. Why? Because anytime people are listening to you, they're giving you their time. And if people are generous enough to give you their time and share their time with you, you should be responsible enough, at least according to my values, you should be responsible enough to do responsible research on their behalf so that when they're listening to you speak, they can get actual value out of what it is that you have to say. Because everybody speaking ain't saying anything valuable, right? Everybody talking ain't saying anything, ain't necessarily saying something. So what I try to do in the spirit of being a responsible scholar is I actually listen to, watch, and read New Testament scholars of the highest degree. Oxford, Harvard, Yale, and other esteemed universities, right? Seminary colleges as well, Princeton Seminary, and many others. They're all over the country. So actually, they're all over the world. And so that's what I do. I listen to a lot of boring things about Christianity that most of you would not be interested in, and really might not care to spend your time indulging. But I do it so that when I speak, I want to know what Christian concerns are. I want to know what do they genuinely believe. And the first thing that I can tell you about Christians is that none of them believe the same thing. None of them. They all have they got so many different beliefs in Christianity, you shouldn't even call it one religion. It's not one religion. It is a multitude of religious theologies presenting themselves as this one brand. And so they all get in line and stand behind this brand, and they all seek to be the prime representatives of this brand called Christianity. But no. I mean, that tells you how twisted the whole thing is, right? Just think about the concept of conversion. And I was listening to someone talk about conversion, and they were talking about when you convert to Judaism, when you get married and you convert to Judaism, you have to forswear the God of your family. So if your family worships Allah or Jesus or Buddha or whoever, you have to forego that because you are now a part of the Jewish world. So they talk about conversion. But then the person went further to iterate the fact that there is also what might be called interreligion conversion in multiple ways. One of them is when you convert from, say, Pentecostal to Calvinism, or you convert from Calvinism to Catholicism, or you convert from Catholicism to Baptist. So even within the religion, you still got people converting, right? Why are they converting? Why do these different subset brands exist to begin with? Because they don't believe the same thing. That's why you got Eastern Orthodox versus the West, Oriental, the Oriental Church, the Catholic Church. When I say the list goes on and on, you got diophysitic Christians, you got monophysitic Christians, you got meaphysitic Christians, you got and they figure this, oh, let me put that Christian behind it. That's like 10 people looking at the earth and all having very different beliefs about the earth. If you got 5 people over here or if you got 8 people over here that believe that know that the earth is spherical, and then you got 2 people over here that think the earth is flat, just because you are all looking at the same thing doesn't mean you have the same correct perspective about it. So if your perspective ain't correct and your perspective is wrong, what you trying to teach me for with your wrong perspective? Or teach anyone else for? Get your perspective together first. And then that's a horror show. To watch them try to get their perspective together, it's a circus. It's a circus. And when I tell you I listen to their top scholars, I'm talking about their best. So what you have to understand is that in Christianity, it's like any other, particularly in Christian scholarship, right? So we're talking about Christian scholarship now. In the world of Christian scholarship, you have hierarchies, you have a pecking order, and you have tiers. Okay? And the funny thing is, I guess like in most ideologies, you're going to have groups from the religious, or from the, how can I put it? I guess the evangelical side of it. They think they know more than the scholars. If the scholars say something that they don't like, right, or something they disagree with. So I mean, like, the bottom line is, they all have very different thoughts about all of it, but it's still worth listening to because you can learn a lot. You understand? You can learn a whole lot. I love listening to them because I see all of their weaknesses. I see their fallacies. I see what I call their full of shitness. All of them. Every last one. The ones that make me laugh the most are the ones who pretend to be objective, right? They try to have this scholarly air about themselves, and they're very objective, and they're sitting on these panels and these platforms, and they're pontificating on their favorite subject matter, early Christianity in Rome, and what the reality was really like. And they're just basically full of shit. I mean, I really don't know what to tell you. You know, they live in an alternative reality, and it's a very insulated alternative reality. It's a very insulated echo chamber, circumscribed reality. And I have to put reality in quotes because it ain't reality. So with that, so you heard what this gentleman said. Now, why is this last paragraph or this first little passage that I read important? Because they stress the fact that ISIS was a deadly foe to Christianity in its early years. What I've learned about these scholars is that one of their tactics is to take major things that compromise the Christian narrative, and what they do is they diminish it to make it appear as if it's a footnote. It's just a little aside, just a footnote, nothing really worth mentioning, nothing to see here. That's how they do, and that's how they treat ISIS worship or the mystery cults in general. They try to diminish them and make them seem as if they were just incidental and just a an ephemeral part of the Roman tapestry in the 1st century CE, and that they really had no impact on Christianity. And that, so what these Christian scholars do in a nutshell, I could drop names. I just don't want these. I don't want my Christian adversaries to know exactly who it is that I study. I want to wait until I get them in my vice grip, in my Ankh vice grip, right? That's what I'm waiting for. But what let me tell you what they do. It's really funny what these scholars do. And I'm talking about, these are like big scholars. Like, their names carry a lot of weight in the world of Christianity. And what they do is they really just, they romanticize Christianity, and then they prop up Christian premises with the veneer of scholarship. So it sounds like you're listening to a scholarly discussion or scholarly discourse, but if you are aware of the wider world in which Christianity was introduced in, the only thing that you can actually hear and see is everything they're leaving out. So the first thing that should tell you is that, okay, they have an agenda and they have a party line narrative, and what they do is they use their scholarly career to make themselves aloof from the rest of the worshipers, as if they are a special caste. They're almost like the Christian Pharisees, right? They really are, and they're almost just as dogmatic as the Jewish Pharisees were, right? So, or were purported to be, and so it's really interesting to listen to them. And I mean, I listen to them hours on end. Like, you have no idea. Like, I'll go 13 hours just listening to lectures of like the top Christian scholars. I want to know who I want to know what they think. Like, what are your inner thoughts about biblical theology, as opposed to this kind of theology, as opposed to this kind of theology? All of that stuff. Their love affair with the Ante-Nicene Fathers, and all of this stuff. Their love affair with Saul of Tarsus, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating how the scholars who are supposed to be the objective thinkers in the room are really just Christian wannabe intellectuals. But and here's the proof. Most of these Christian scholars are Christians. That alone should tell you something. That if that doesn't tell you something, then you're just as stupid as they are. Most of these Christian scholars, these big-time PhD, 30 PhDs, New Testament studies, a Hebrew university, this, that, they're Christians. That's like studying Islam or the history of Islam under a Muslim professor. Do you honestly think you're going to get the real history of Islam? Then you're stupid. Worshippers of these cults are obligated to their central text. And even when you speak, even when they try to speak on it in a scholarly way, it's within the context of their religious fantasy. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. It's bizarre. It's a very, very bizarre thing. See, all of this stuff that interests me, all of this stuff, what it comes down to for me is human psychology. How does your mind work? In fact, does your mind work? How well does it work, or how compromised is it? And for me, it's really just an exercise at the end of the day of keeping my own mind sharp, as it is for many of you. Some of us are just much sharper than others, because we've been doing it a lot longer. And it would benefit you to listen, to watch, and to learn. Okay, so let's proceed. So I wanted to point that out, that he mentioned that ISIS was a deadly foe to Christianity because she was said to give her worshipers their daily bread. Isis was an insidiously dangerous foe for Christian theologians because she was believed to give her worshipers their daily bread. Now let's go on here. A bitter struggle had to be waged before the Greco-Roman world at last accepted Jesus instead of Isis. Now see, here's the thing. You will never hear these Christians talk about that bitter struggle. They want to make it seem like Christianity just came out the box. It was so popular, people just couldn't resist it. And everybody was just jumping on the bandwagon because Jesus, that's what they tell you. But they lie. This is the counter narrative that I'm exposing you to. The counter narrative was that they had to go to war. They literally had to go to war with the other religions, the most dominant religion, which was the religion of Isis worship, which at the time was the most dominant religion in the world. It was the Catholic religion in the known world. Isis worship. All the way from Nubia, so-called Nubia, all the way into Europe. All the way into Europe. That's what Christianity had to compete with. I'm not, Mithraism and these other ones, I think, are very misunderstood by a lot of people. But Christianity had to compete with all of these religions, but they were not all dominant. The Isis worship was dominant. And that's why Professor Ritter is telling you a bitter struggle had to be waged. You know what a bitter struggle is? Huh? Okay. A bitter struggle had to be waged before the Greco-Roman world at last accepted Jesus instead of Isis. Among the reasons for the keenness of the conflict, look at how he phrases that. The keenness of the conflict. That's a pretty sharp word. None was more important than the claim made by the upholders of the Egyptian faith that their goddess was the wonder worker for the gift of healing the sick. Now, one of the things that you have to understand about Jesus is that many of these gods in the ancient world is that their main claim to fame was as deities of healers. They were healing deities. So people who were on their deathbeds would pray to these deities, would supplicate these deities. People who had loved ones on their deathbeds would supplicate these deities. They would worship them. They would try to win their favor or whatever it was, whatever rites they had to do in order to gain the favor of the deity. That's what they did. But Isis was the dominant god of healing in that era. This is what Jesus or Christ, or the Christians rather, this is what the Christians had to compete with. Why is this important? What is the oldest known image of Jesus? The oldest known image of Jesus in human form, because we're going to get to the other stuff later. See, there's a lot of mythology about Jesus, about Christianity, that these Christians push. A whole lot of BS. But the earliest image of Jesus in human form is a portrait known as the healing of the paralytic. The healing of the paralytic. Look it up. It's supposed to be the oldest known rendering of Jesus. It looks almost like stick painting. Almost. Right? It's very, very primitive. But it's called the healing of the paralytic. So these are all healing religions. They were healing / resurrection religions. Okay? So, but if you let the Christians tell you, they were the only ones that dealt with resurrection. Right? See, I don't have a problem with Christianity. What I have a problem is the way Christians tell their story about Christianity. That's the issue I have. Okay. So Christianity, hold on. Oh, I think we dealt with that already. We dealt with all of this. Okay, here we go. All right. Yeah, it's coming. That's right. It's coming. All right. So Christianity worshiped its Lord as healing all manner of sickness, and its sharpest ancient critic, Celsus, found fault with Jesus on the ground that he had gained certain powers from a stay in Egypt, and from these he had derived his divinity. Such magic powers were the prerogative of the goddess who in Egypt had brought her brother husband back to life. So what is being said there? What's being said there is that a first century, or rather a second century Greek philosopher, Celsus, made the claim that the assertion that supposedly, according to Pastor, you heard him, that affiliation with Jesus in Egypt is from the 19th century and white scholars. But yet Professor Witter is telling you, or Professor Witt is telling you, that in the 2nd century CE, this claim was being made that Jesus had gone to Egypt, and it was there he got his powers as a, to do miracles and to heal people, particularly to bring people back to life. And what Professor Witt is telling you is that in the ancient world, that power was first affiliated and associated with Isis as opposed to Jesus. And that therefore Jesus had to basically wrestle notoriety from Isis for being the arbiter of this power to bring people back to life. So basically, the Christians had to compete with the African legacy of healing and resurrection. Okay, bringing people back to life. Now, let's continue. Why is this important? Because as we look further, I told you, never believe anything a Christian says. This is the 2nd century CE. Okay, I'm going to remove myself from the screen so you can see everything just for a moment, and I'll be back. Okay. So over here, this is from Britannica. This is a likeness of Origen of Alexandria, an early church father. Origen, Latin in full, Origenis Adamantius. His name actually means child of Horus. That name, Origen, it means child of Horus. Born 185, Common Era, probably Alexandria, Egypt. Died 254, that's the 3rd century. He's born in the 2nd century, he died in the 3rd century. He died in Tyre, Phoenicia, now Lebanon, right? The most important theologian and biblical scholar of the early Greek church. That's from Britannica. That's not Shakka-Ahmose. Britannica said he was the most important theologian and biblical scholar of the early Greek church. Okay? This is also from Britannica. Contra Celsum. This is the reference that Professor Witt was referring to when it came to the claims of Jesus. Many of you have heard me quote this before, and I'm going to quote and read from this again from the actual book, Contra Celsus, which is from the 2nd century CE. Contra Celsus from the 3rd century CE. Okay? Well, let's get it correct. Yes. Against Celsus, a treatise written by Origen around 246-248, which is the 3rd century CE, to answer the still troublesome work of a Platonist and critic of Christianity dating from about 70 years earlier, 176 CE, the 2nd century, and claiming to speak the word of truth, aletes logos. Celsus was quite well informed. Now, this is Britannica saying that Celsus was not an idiot. He was well informed. For those of you who don't know what well informed means, go to the back of the class, okay? Celsus was well informed. Well, let's look and see what Origen had to say about Celsus, because then we're going to see what Celsus had to say about Jesus and Mary, okay? And this is from the actual book, Origen contra Celsus, book 1, chapter 18, talking about these two, Mary and Jesus. Okay? This is from the 3rd century CE, and he's talking about a conversation that took place in the 2nd century CE. So let's read it. And since, in imitation of a rhetorician training a pupil, he, Celsus, introduces a Jew who enters into a personal discussion with Jesus and speaks in a very childish manner, altogether unworthy of the gray hairs of a philosopher. Let me endeavor to the best of my ability to examine his statements and to show that he does not maintain throughout the discussion the consistency due to the character of a Jew. So this is Origen trying to shit on Celsus 70 years after Celsus wrote this. Now, what you have to consider is that what Celsus wrote was so powerful that 70 years after he wrote it, it was still causing problems for Christians. In other words, Christians were not able to get their lies over about Jesus because Celsus's work was still in circulation. Now, that's got to be hella powerful. If what you wrote about Jesus 70 years prior, this is almost 100 years prior and closer to the time of Jesus than Origen was. Okay? Closer to the time of Jesus than Origen was. Let's look at the dates. Right? Because you got to remember, history is all about dates. So let's look at this. Origen is when? Let's take a look. Origen is born in 185. Okay? Origen is born in 185. Celsus was writing, hold on. Celsus was writing roughly 176. Okay? So when Celsus was writing, Origen was a child. Think about that. When Celsus was writing about who Jesus and Mary was, Origen, who's now commenting on his writing, he was just a little boy. So chances are that Celsus knew a lot more about Jesus than Origen would have, because he was a grown man when Origen was a little boy. So now the little boy is growing up, he wants to write a response to Celsus. Really? Okay. So let's see what he says, because it gives us, first of all, it destroys the Christian lie that Pastor Gay was saying, what I showed you, when he said they're getting this from Zeitgeist. Are you saying that Celsus in the 2nd century got that idea from Zeitgeist? Because that's what you're saying, Pastor Jerome Gay Jr. You're saying that Celsus got the idea about Jesus getting his powers from Egypt, that he must have gotten it from the YouTube video Zeitgeist. This is a Platonist philosopher writing in the 2nd century. But you want to lie and tell people that that idea comes from, well, wait a minute, let's read it first. I don't want to put words in his mouth he hadn't said yet. Hold on a second. Sometimes I get ahead of myself because I already know the material. Right? So he, Celsus, represents the Jew disputing with Jesus and confuting him as he thinks on many points. Okay? So he's talking about the way Celsus told the story. And in the story that Celsus was telling, he had a Jew confronting Jesus. And the Jew was apparently destroying Jesus in the conversation from the way Celsus tells it. So let's continue. He says, in the first place, the Jew accuses Jesus of having invented his birth from a virgin. Okay? And upbraids Jesus with being what? Born in a certain Jewish village of a poor woman of the country who gained her subsistence by spinning, and who was turned out of doors by her husband, a carpenter by trade, because she was convicted of adultery. And after being driven away by her husband, so let's stop for a second. According to Celsus, the Jewish narrative in the 2nd century, the Jewish narrative about Mary and Jesus was that Mary made her money spinning, right? She was like a weaver. And she got kicked out of her house, and she was, here's the word, she was convicted of adultery. So Mary was fucking around on Joseph. She was convicted of it. See, the Bible leaves that part out. The canonic books that they left in the Bible, or that they decided to put in the Bible, it leaves that out. That she was convicted of adultery. Not just accused. See, in the Bible, they just tell you that Joseph, because he was a righteous man, he kind of had second thoughts about being with Mary because she was pregnant. But then the Spirit appears and says, no, this is from God, right? That's not the narrative. That's how they poeticize it for you in the book. They Christianize it for you. But if you listen to the Greek philosopher Celsus via the words of Origen, the early church father, the most important early church father of the early Greek church, if you listen to him recount Celsus's story, and if you listen to the words that Celsus puts in the Jew's mouth who's talking to Jesus, according to the Jewish worldview and the Jewish narrative of that time, Mary was not just accused of fucking around on Joseph. She was convicted of adultery. Okay? She was convicted of adultery. And the culture I come from, when you convicted of something, you guilty. So Mary was guilty of fucking around on Joseph. So if you're going to tell the story, tell it right. That's all. And that's what Celsus was doing. Telling it right. He lived closer to the time than Origen did. Okay? Tell it right. I know the Christians tuning in. Mad as fuck. You're going to be a lot more mad when I'm done with you. So I'm showing black people the things that y'all don't want them to see and know about. Okay? So this is what he says. Let's read that part again. They're getting this from Zeitgeist, pseudo scholarship. We're going to show who got the pseudo scholarship, right? The Jew accuses Jesus of having invented his birth from a virgin. So Jesus came up with that story that his mother was a virgin. Okay? In the Jewish narrative, according to the Greek philosopher, Jesus was the one that started that lie. Okay? And upbraids him with being born in a certain Jewish village of a poor woman of the country who gained her subsistence by spinning, and who was turned out of doors by her husband, a carpenter by trade, Turned out of doors means he kicked Mary out the house. Joseph kicked her ass out because she was convicted of adultery. That after being driven away by her husband and wandering about for a time, she disgracefully gave birth to Jesus, an illegitimate child, who, having hired himself out as a servant in Egypt on account of his poverty. So Jesus was a servant in Egypt. Let's be clear on that. According to Celsus, according to the Jew that Celsus is supposed to be quoting, Jesus was a servant in Egypt. He hired himself out as a servant. Okay? He was the help. And having there in Egypt, and the reason he did this because he was broke. He couldn't cut it as a carpenter, so he hired himself out as a servant. So it was Joseph who was the carpenter. In the Bible, they changed it, and they made Jesus the carpenter. See how they lie, right? You got to go to the Greeks who was around watching all this stuff, right? So Jesus hired himself out as a servant in Egypt on account of his poverty. And having there acquired some miraculous, having what? Having there in Egypt, in Africa, acquired some miraculous powers on which the Egyptians greatly pride themselves. Now, wait a minute. Hold on a second, right? And then Jesus returned to his own country, highly elated on account of these powers, and by means of these powers proclaimed himself a God. Stop right there. I'm going to tell you why you got to stop right there. Because you know what that does? That takes that whole zeitgeist narrative that idiot was standing on the stage lying about, right? You know what that is? What we just proved through documentation, because that's from the 2nd century. There wasn't no zeitgeist video to talk about Jesus in Egypt. There wasn't nobody no Helena Blavatsky or no Gerald Massey talking about Jesus in Egypt. This is the early church father Origen in the 3rd century, quoting a 2nd century Platonist philosopher Celsus, who himself is purportedly quoting a Jew who is having a conversation with and about Jesus. So you know what that makes you, Jerome Gay Jr.? I'm just asking, do you know what that makes you? Or better yet, do you know what that makes, that statement that you said about they're getting this all from zeitgeist? You know what that is now? Officially. Just in case you didn't see that, let me help you out again. Are we clear? Are we clear on that? So stop telling that lie, Jerome Gay Jr., that this idea about Jesus getting his powers of resurrection from Egypt started in the 19th century. Even Fatso Eric Mason lied and said, oh, nobody said this before the 19th century. Dude, you're not even just a liar. Okay, I'm really trying to stay away from profanity because I want to call you an effing liar. That's what you are. So that statement, that Christian statement that Pastor Eric Mason continually tells people, that nobody was making this connection between Jesus and Egypt before the 19th century. Bro, it's another shattered Christian lie. So stop telling it. Stop telling it. It's that simple. Pastor Eric Mason, stop telling that lie, because Celsus is going to make you a lie. The early church father Origen is going to make you a liar every time. Here's the thing. You don't have to agree with Celsus. Just stop lying about when something was said. What is the point? Why you go? I always tell people, I was doing something the other day. I wanted to go in a place and I didn't have my mask on. And they weren't going to open the door because they were like, they pointed to the sign saying you have to have a mask. So I reached in my pocket and pulled out my mask when I put it on. And when I walked in, I told the person, I said, I ain't got to teach you to beat you. I ain't got to teach you to beat you. I ain't got to come in here with no, I got exactly what I need to get in. We had a good laugh about it, and I enjoyed myself. And it's the same thing. Why you got to cheat us to beat us? Just come with the facts and come with the truth. If you're too stupid to know the truth, I guess Eric Mason, how you got a degree in divinity and you call yourself this big time pastor, but you don't know about Celsus? You don't know about the early church father Origen saying that this is what Celsus said in Contra Celsus? So then where do you get off telling people to lie that we get this from Gerald Massey and Helena Blavatsky and all this stupid shit? Just because Dr. Clark recommended that we read Massey and read Kuhn and read Graves, we read them. Read Higgins too. And we realized, many of us realized, okay, this is outdated scholarship. We can't really mess with this stuff. So we went on to real scholarship. You just want to keep running around spreading, like the only thing, look, don't ask to be respected as a Christian, as a theologian, as any of that shit, if the only thing that you can do is repeat falsehoods and lies. Deal with the fact that this was said about Jesus in the 2nd century of the Common Era. We wouldn't know about it if the early church father Origen hadn't wrote about it in Contra Celsus. So every time that you tell people that they're getting this from Zeitgeist and they're getting this from 19th century scholars and this wasn't said before the 19th century, it's a wrap, bro. You're done. You're done. Dismissed. Go. Grab your little priest collar and hit the door. You're done. Come back when you get some actual scholarship under your belt. I mean, like, how do you do that? It's like you just going to insult the intelligence of black people on behalf of Jesus? I don't get that. I mean, the documentation is right here in your face. Shakka didn't write Contra Celsus. No Muslim person wrote that. No Jewish person wrote that. No African person from West Africa or South Africa. No Zulu person wrote that. Well, actually, an African person did write it. It was Origen. He was an Egyptian, right? He may have been quasi-African, because by that period, most of the native black Africans in Egypt had already left because of the Romans. These were mostly mixed, miscegenated people who had taken the place and the title of natives after the true natives had left. So you get like this very mixed population. They're not the natives. They're what you call the pseudo-natives. So he would have been a pseudo-native of Egypt. Okay? But yeah, come on, man. Stop playing games. Clowns. This is what was said. He proclaimed himself a god. He hired himself out to Egypt, learned some miraculous powers while he was there, the kind that the Egyptians themselves were proud of. He went back to his own country and declared himself a god. This is in black and white. It's the documentation from the 2nd century of the Common Era. This is what was being said about Jesus. So why are you lying and saying we making this up now? Because I will always tell you, as long as you breathe and live, mark my words, the only thing a Christian knows how to, they are professional liars. Period. They're professional liars. That's why I have such distaste and disdain for them. You are truly the children of Satan to me. If Satan is the father of lies, then what the fuck are you? Excuse me. What are you? If Satan is the father of lies, then what are you? It's not like I didn't show Jerome Gay Jr. on stage saying those words out of his mouth that they're getting this from Zeitgeist. He said it's Google scholarship. So then Origen was using Google scholarship? Is that what you're telling us? In the 3rd century CE, Origen was sitting in the temple, got on his laptop, went to Google and typed in Jesus in Egypt. And then the worst part, I've learned something. I've been in a lot of relationships, right? a lot with women, a whole lot of relationships. And the relationships that I had the toughest time dealing with was when I was in a relationship with somebody who was incapable of admitting when they were wrong. See, I can't deal with perfect people. I don't know perfect people. Christians believe they're perfect because they're never wrong. That alone, to me, makes you dangerous. That's a dangerous psychology where you're never wrong. Scholars admit all the time, when we're wrong, we made a mistake, we come back, we say, oh, I said this, I was in error, it's actually this. Christians are never wrong. See, it says right here, verse chapter 2. That's another thing. Don't waste your time debating Christians, and I'll tell you why. They ain't working with a full deck. They give off the air that they are. They pretend that they are, but they're not. They've abdicated their thinking to the brain. They abdicated their thinking to the Bible. And what they've done is they've created these channels between all of the different texts that were never meant to have anything to do with each other. They've created all these channels so that one text verifies another text. It's a sick Christian rationale. They call it a theological. It's biblical theology. You use this text and all this exegetical bullshit, BS. This is a sick bunch of puppies, and it is a cult. I will tell you that every episode. Christianity is a cult. Okay? It is a subset of the Yahweh cult. Oh, that's the other thing about these Christians that I find fascinating. Anytime you stamp them down on a point and you actually got it, they become smoke and they move to another premise. And they say, no, that's wrong. Here's why. So in their world, in their mind, you are never right. They are never wrong. And that's why they won't see me in public. They don't want to debate me in public because to be proven wrong standing in front of everybody is pretty embarrassing. It's kind of hard to live down. Smart. Smartest thing you could ever do is not debate me. Eric Mason, Vince Bantu, Damon Richardson, Alfredo Valentin, and Adam Coleman. Smartest thing you could, Ed Jerome Gay Jr. Ed Damon Richardson, I think I said. Smartest thing you could ever do, the most intelligent. That shows me you have an IIQ. Keep your distance. Bunch of punks. All of you combined. Scared a little old me. And Broussard, Chris Broussard, punk number 1. Okay? So let's get back to the text so we can see what else was said about Jesus in the 2nd century. Okay? Let's get back to it. Proclaimed himself a God. Now, as I cannot allow anything said by unbelievers to remain unexamined, but must investigate everything from the beginning, I give it as my opinion that all these things worthily harmonize with the prejudice that Jesus is the Son of God. Okay. Now, I think here I just repeated it. I'm not sure why, right? Yeah, I did. So let's move on to the next one. So, Christian Pastor Live 666 laid to rest that they're getting this from the Zeitgeist video. So we're going to lay that lie to rest, okay? Permanently. All right? That don't tell that lie. Come up with a new lie. That's all we asking. Just come up with a new lie. That shouldn't be that hard. Come up with a new lie. Because that old lie is dead. It got shattered. That old lie is shattered. Anytime you hear them say that this stuff is coming from Zeitgeist or that it's coming from 19th century scholars, just look at them and say contra Celsus. Origin and contra Celsus. and then walk away. That's it. And just remind them, Jesus hired himself out as a servant in Egypt, where he got his powers, which he was so in love with that when he got back to Palestine, he declared himself a god. Look at what I can do. Look at what I know that you idiots don't know. Okay? So stop telling that lie. Just come up with a new lie. That's not a lot to ask. Come up with a new lie, because we get tired of having to refute the same lie over and over again. It is a shattered lie. Eric Mason and Jerome Gay Jr. It is a shattered lie. It is laid to rest in 2022. That shit is over. Done. Come up with a new lie. There should be paid penalties in this arena for people who repeat the same lie even after it's been successfully refuted. It's a lie. Plain and simple. If you got psychological issues, and see, this is what I mean. See, now, if you repeat this after today, you are bona fide documented liars. And anybody hearing them saying it on their Facebook pages, on their group pages, or any of them, call them out. Just tell them straight, you're a liar. You're a known, documented liar. And that's it. Keep it moving. Now, let's deal with this. So what they tell you is, they like to tell people that this idea of Jesus and Egypt comes from this person, Helena Blavatsky, right? Nobody who I ever known has ever read her. I don't read her. I know the Moors like to read her, the Moorish Science Temple. I don't deal with that. Kersey Graves, I've never read 16 Crucified Saviors, so I don't know anything about it. I don't care about it. Albert Churchward, who wrote Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, I've never read his work, so don't know about it, don't care about it. Godfrey Higgins Esquire, who wrote Anacalypsis, Volume 1 and Volume 2, those works I used to own. I thought it was what those works do and why they are interesting, and I see why Dr. Clark said that we should read them, is because it gives you an idea of what the perspective was of white people who had access to literature in the 19th century concerning ancient culture. And while they did not get a lot of technical things right, the spirit of their work was absolutely correct. That the majority of the ancient deities in the ancient world were people of color or mostly black. That was the gist of their work. Now, if the church if these retarded Christians have a problem with that premise, I don't know what to tell you. Don't write books talking about the whitewashing of Christianity. You know? I mean, just don't say stupid things. That's all I'm saying. When it comes to Alvin Boyd Kuhn, his work, Who is This King of Glory? I've never read the whole thing. I've read the opening chapter, the introduction, which I love. I love the first few paragraphs. And this is his teacher or his mentor, Gerald Massey. He was a student of Gerald Massey, and Gerald Massey was a playwright. He was an English playwright, and he was what you call an armchair scholar. He was not an official recognized scholar, and a lot of his work was technically wrong and incorrect. But the spirit of his work was very correct and very on point, and a lot of his overall premises were proven to be 100% correct in later times. But he did not produce enough correct material to be taken seriously as a scholar, and that's just the truth of the matter. But where he got certain things right, I'll quote him in a heartbeat, because then I'll back it up with cutting-edge scholarship that agrees with him. Right? So if Gerald Massey is saying one thing and then James P. Allen says the same thing, then Gerald Massey was right. If Gerald Massey says one thing and then Eric Horner, another famous Egyptologist, he said the same thing, or Ian Shaw said the same thing, right? Then he's correct. Sorry. I hate to tell you that there are some people in history who wrote things who got some things right and some things wrong, or who got a few things right and many things wrong. But what I'm saying is that where they are right, they deserve that credit. That's all. Give the man his dues wherever he's right. Same thing with Alvin Boyd Kuhn. Now, Alvin Boyd Kuhn is a little different. Why is Alvin Boyd Kuhn different? This is Alvin Boyd Kuhn here, right? Alvin Boyd Kuhn is a little different. The thing about Alvin Boyd Kuhn is that he graduated with a PhD from Columbia University, which is literally a 5-minute walk from my house. I pass it almost every day. Okay? So that's important to know. Not only did he graduate with his PhD in from Columbia University, he graduated with it in Theosophy. And it's a funny story, kind of, because there was no one there who knew enough to grade his paper to say whether, so they gave him the PhD. He got it. He knew more about the subject matter than the people there grading him. Same thing happened to Shakka-Ahmose. And that's not an unusual thing in scholarship when the student knows more about the subject matter than his teachers. And Alvin Boyd Kuhn wrote "Who is this King of Glory?" which we're going to quote right here. And I don't think that this anything he said is incorrect here. Prove it, because these Christians haven't proven it incorrect yet. Okay? So hold on one second, because this thing just did a little hop, skip, and a jump. Okay, so let's read what Alvin Boyd Kuhn said in the first, in this part right here, in the introduction. He says, the entire Christian Bible, creation, legend, descent into Exodus from Egypt, Ark and flood allegory, Israelite history, Hebrew prophecy, and poetry, gospel epistles, and revelation imagery are all now proven to have been the transmission of ancient Egypt scrolls and papyri into the hands of later generations, which knew neither their true origin nor their fathomless meaning. That's correct. For the most part, I would say out of 100, he got about 97% right. About 97%. We're talking about the Christian Bible. So yeah, the New Testament, which is called the Christian Bible, I would say, yeah, he got that 100. He got that. I'd give him 100%. Yeah, the New Testament, I give him 100%. He got that right. So this is his book, Who is this King of Glory? Okay. Yeah. So a study. What is it? It's a critical study of the Christos Messiah tradition. Oh, there it is on the bottom. Yeah. I'm trying to read this part right here. You can't see it, and I have it written right here. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with that statement. So, just put this lie to rest. Whether you agree with them or not, put this lie to rest. Stop lying. Stop lying. Stop lying. When you lie, it makes your breath stink. Okay? Here you go. Now, this is Jaromir, Ancient Egypt, Light of the World, 6-volume set. Now, they say, oh, Jaromir was not respected as a scholar. So what? You have a lot of bona fide scholars that are not respected as scholars, right? But let's see what he said. Look, he doesn't have to be scholar to be correct. Either he's correct, what he said is correct, or it's wrong. So let's see what he said. Jaromir said, the original foundational matter of the Mosaic writings is, nor was not historical at all, but entirely mythical. The myths of Egypt were found to have been copied and reproduced. The Hebrews took them from the Egyptians with other stolen goods and was unable or did not choose to render a true account of them. That's true. What's so wrong about that? There's absolutely nothing wrong about what he said. Why? Because it's no different than when I showed you, I think it was you guys I showed, and I'm pretty sure it was in this one, where I spoke about the introduction to the Bible. I showed you a book called The Introduction to the Bible by two major scholars, and in it, they say that they presume that the part of the Moses story where he kills the 4 men in Egypt is based on an Egyptian story called the story of Sinuhe, the voyage of Sinuhe. So if major professors are saying that today, and he said it back in 1907, then who the hell is Fatso and Gay Boy here? That's his name, Jerome Gay Jr. Who the hell is the fat pastor and the gay guy here? Or Jerome, that's his name, Jerome Gay, right? Who are they to say that he's wrong? If you got major Christian New Testament scholars today saying the same thing and putting it in their work. So, no, shout out to Alvin Boyd Kuhn and Gerald Massey for getting it right. If you want to show where they're wrong, then go into their work and show where they're wrong. But these retards don't even do that. Okay? Oh, this is interesting. I'll read this first over here. So we're back in the book, Isis in the Ancient World. Egypt was the home of thaumaturgy and theosophy, and proverbial for its secret theological wisdom. Page 187, Healing the Sick. We do well to remember the widespread influence of Egypt. Let's read that again. We do well to remember the widespread influence of Egyptian theosophical beliefs in their Hellenistic shape when we encounter Pauline statements that Christ is the power or dynamis and the wisdom, Sophia, of God. Okay? Now, let me show you why Christians believe they are always right and why you should never debate them. It is a waste of time. Why would you debate somebody that's psychologically incapable of conceding a point? That's the definition of talking to an insane person. They are literally psychologically disabled to the point that they cannot concede a point. Why? Because they literally believe that they have the mind of God, that they alone have the mind of God. Because they worship Christ, they partake in his mind. It's a form of Greek philosophy, Neoplatonism, that is present in their doctrine, right? That they're embarrassed about. But this is what they believe, that they have the mind of God. Listen, you think I'm lying? Look. They really believe that they have the mind of God, and therefore you and I are stupid. We don't know shit. Look. It says right here, for the message about the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. The message about the cross. Now listen, it's 1 Corinthians 1:18. Now let's go to 1 Corinthians 2:16. For who has known the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. This is what they believe, that they have the mind of Christ. I didn't make that up. This is what they believe, that they have the mind of Christ. They literally believe that collectively they have the mind of God, and the rest of us are stupid and we don't know shit. And that the message of the cross is foolishness to us because we perish. Oh, yeah. And wait until you get into that Calvinism shit. I've been all up in that Calvinism shit. These people are sick. They're sick. They are really sick people. It's a mental disease. It really is. When you look and see what it is that they're saying, tulip. Yeah, I know your little code word, Calvinist, your tulip. You know, that your little acronym for what he taught or for what you believe he taught. Your people are sick. You're psychologically warped. You're a cancer on the human race, in my opinion. Okay? Certainly an enemy of truth on too many levels. So let's look at this. Now, I'd say you're a mental inconvenience at worst. I don't want to tell you you're a cancer and this, that, and the third. You're just a mental inconvenience, right? But one that I wholeheartedly have no problem with addressing. So who the hell told this thing to jump? Oh, okay. So one striking resemblance, let me make sure my, okay. Hold on 1 second. Absolutely. Please hit the like button, people. That's very important. I'll say it again. Please hit the like button. If you're seeing things, if you're learning things, if you believe in the platform and you want my presence here, please hit the like button. Very important that you do. Okay? So, yeah, facts. Yo, that's facts. Tennessee was my song too. He said, you changed my mind about speech some time ago. He said he was one of the black apostles. Yeah. I stopped messing with him too. I'm like, oh, nah, bro. You got caught out there. You drink the Jesus Kool-Aid. I can't rock with you. No? Yeah. Wow, I ain't never heard a Christian say nothing like this. I ain't never heard a Christian say anything like that. First Christian I've ever heard speak. He said, hey, I'm a Christian and I know how to recognize when I'm out of my field. Maybe many are out of their league but can't admit to that. Wow. Whoa, this is like, I'm having a moment, people. You're gonna have to give me a second because I've never heard a Christian speak like that before. So, well, actually I did. Me. When I was a Christian, because I was a Christian. These people forget. We all see the one thing we have over them is that we black. We grew up in the church, especially if you're African American. We're not a stranger to the inside of a church. We're not a stranger to the pulpit. We're not a stranger to the pews. We're not a stranger to putting money in the tray. We're not a stranger to being an usher. We're not a stranger to any of that. We grew up in that. Who you think? Whose families do you think the pastors come out of? You freaking morons. They come out of our families. We grew up in the Christian tradition in America. So we know as much about the religion as you do, but you just didn't study your history about the continent that our people were taken from. You think you studied it. You think you studied, and then you misrepresent the little bit that you claim. You misrepresent it. Or you don't understand the pitfalls, the consequences of it. Like I said, multiculturalism is a good idea, but in practice, it's harmful to black people when within a multicultural society, they are teaching that black people have a low IQ, white people have a higher IQ, and that Asian people have a higher IQ than them. I'm sorry, you can keep your multiculturalism because that multiculturalism spells the demise of my child. So multiculturalism is not necessarily a beneficial thing. You know, who does multiculturalism benefit? That's the question you got to ask. In whose interest does multiculturalism serve? Multiculturalism cannot serve the interests of me and my community when the multicultural society I live in is preaching that black people are on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to intelligence, and white people are above them, and above them are Asians, because this is what they teach in this culture and society. And it was that very teaching that forced us to bring ancient Egypt to the forefront to highlight our intellectual legacy on this planet. Not just our intellectual legacy, our spiritual legacies, our science legacies, all our mathematical legacies, all our linguistic legacies, all of the things that we gave to the world. And then you got imposters running around claiming that they're the cream of the crop on planet Earth. And they don't understand the role that Christianity plays in that. They just all romanticize and they're in love with certain passages and certain rationales that they get out of it. But we're going to destroy all that. All of it is going in the garbage. I promise you that. I promise you that. Ain't none. They're not. None of them are. None of them are. If they are, they would have called me out. They would have said, Shaka, come on my show. They got shows. If you can take my video and put it up on your platform, why you can't call me and say, Shaka, would you come on the platform so we can refute you? Would you come on True ID? Would you come on Bodega Apologetics or whatever? Right? Or would you come on Conscious Christianity so we can have a discussion with you? No. Bunch of freaking cowards. That's what I call them, Jesus cowards. That's what they are in my eyes. They're Jesus cowards. But they're smart. They know. Leave him alone. I heard Alfredo Valentin once say, Shaka is of all of them, Shaka is the one who reads. He actually reads. You have no idea. That's an understatement. And let me tell you something. This presentation, this is just the opening presentation for the one that I got coming behind this. And I wanted to touch this stuff first so we could just deal with some preliminaries before I get into the good stuff. The good stuff is going to be way down the line because I want to take you on a journey. And each one of these broadcasts that I do, I'm going to leave up here so that people who are searching and who really want to learn and who really want to know, they won't have to spend their whole life and just by luck and by chance come into correct information. No, I'm going to leave this right here. Right here. So everybody who knows somebody who's searching, because they say, yo, just go watch Shakka-Ahmose. Watch this particular episode. He touches on that. Or you can watch me and learn and then, teach. Oh, no, I'm doing all of that. You ain't even got to worry about that. I'm doing all of that. I'm doing all of that. Serious high definition. Don't even sweat it. I'm doing all of that. Like, y'all can't even imagine the kind of stuff that's coming down the pipeline on this platform. Let's see. So let's look at it. He says, remember, we're in the book Isis in the Ancient World, Dr. R.E. Witt, Queen's Mary College, London University. He says, one striking resemblance between the earlier Egyptian religion and what followed it is the Holy Mother on her throne with her babe. Theologically and iconographically, the likeness exists. Now you hear that? He's talking about, where's that image at? Oh, maybe I have it coming up. Right? No, I didn't have it. But we've been looking at it throughout this whole thing. The statue of Isis with Horus sitting on her lap, and the statue or the picture of Mary with Jesus sitting on her lap. He's telling you that not only are they iconographically alike, but theologically they are alike. That's what he said. They are theologically and iconographically, or the likeness exists. Herein lies the significance of the story told in the first gospel about the flight into Egypt, especially if this is looked at as a gospel written for the Church of Alexandria. Strict Catholic orthodoxy understandably rejects as legend, are you ready, people? The tale, part of the Coptic Church's heritage, that Jesus was indeed a child of Egypt, meaning that he was born in Egypt, not Bethlehem. This takes us from a flight out of Palestine to an actual birth in Egypt. On this view, the Christian nativity occurred at the Fayum at Anas, Heracleopolis Magna, the cult center of the ram-headed god Asarfis, whom the ancient authority was ready to regard as a son of Isis, herself powerful in the locality. Uh-oh. 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 That is another early Christian reference to an affiliation of Jesus to Egypt. In the gospel you received, it tells you that Jesus, that Mary and Joseph took Jesus, was running from Herod, and took him to hide in Egypt. But in the Coptic church, they have a tradition that no, he didn't run to Egypt. He was born in Egypt. Born in Egypt. That is a documented Coptic tradition. So don't come over here bragging about Coptic Christianity, Vince Bantu. If you're going to neglect to tell the people, why do you neglect to tell the Kemetic people that part of the Coptic tradition is that Jesus was actually born in Egypt? Because then that takes that you know what that makes that zeitgeist lie that Pastor Gay keeps telling and Pastor Mason keeps telling? That's right. Another shattered Christian lie. Another shattered Christian lie that is documented in ISIS in the ancient world. That's why they don't recommend that you read it. Because you might discover that part of the Coptic tradition is that Jesus was born in Egypt. They even have the exact location in the Fayum. So it seems your Moses was raised with the Pharaoh. Your God, Moses, who you call your first Jesus, he was raised with the Pharaoh in the Pharaoh's house. Jesus either fled into Egypt or, according to the Copts, was born in Egypt. And then you got Celsus affiliating him, saying he hired himself out as a servant in Egypt. I'm sure he did. He probably felt home. He probably went home and said, hey, I know I can get some work. Let me go home and get some work. Right? All of this Egyptian affiliation with Jesus. But you want to tell us and tell people, lie to your congregation and tell them that we get it from 19th century scholars, from Helena Blavatsky and Gerald Massey and Alvin Boyd Kuhn. I wish this was the old days when you could say certain things on camera and not have to worry about stuff happening to your platform or your channel, or you can't monetize it because you got to be careful. You got to speak according to what the advertisers want. You got to be careful. But yeah, that's the Coptic tradition they don't tell you about, that Jesus was born in Egypt. That's what they tell. Oh, and you don't want to know what the West told them. When the West realized that the Copts were trying to push that, they told them, no, don't come at us with that shit. They said, nope, we will not have an Egyptian-born Egypt. See, what y'all fail to realize is that all of these traditions that they have are arbitrary. They're arbitrary. Whoever has control of the publishing houses determines what story gets a pass and what story doesn't. That's why you have so many other Gospels. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the Apocrypha, all these other different Gospels. I'm not going to even go into the other Gospels that you guys don't know about because they'll really freak you out. Yeah. Real talk. They'll really freak you out. We're going to go into them later because I'm going to show you the other things that were said about Jesus, all those missing years that people always talk about. Yeah. We're going to look at that because these people, they want to edit your brain. They want to edit your brain. And that's what this is really all about. It's all about maintaining your ability to think for yourself. But you know what they say? Lean not on thy own understanding. Oh, really now? So you want to disarm me of my thinking, my ability to think for myself. Okay. Who's that going to serve? Now there's going to serve me. Okay? I somehow just don't see that working out in my best interest. Abdicating my right to think for myself. Incapacitating myself. Incapacitating my thinking faculties. No, I'm not doing that. Okay. So Let's continue. Yes. Strict Catholic orthodoxy understandably rejects as legendary the tale, part of the Coptic Church's heritage, that Jesus was indeed a child of Egypt. This takes us from a flight out of Palestine to an actual birth in Egypt. On this view, the Christian nativity occurred at the Fayum in Anas, Heracleopolis Magna. Okay? Okay. Let's be clear on that, people. Okay? So it said that Egypt was the home of thaumaturgy. What is thaumaturgy? The working of wonders or miracle, magic. Okay? This is what Egypt was known for in the ancient world. Not Bethlehem, not Palestine, not none of those places. Egypt. Okay? Theosophy. What is theosophy? Theosophia. Etymologically, is wisdom of God. The word is used by several church fathers, both Greek and Latin, as a synonym for theology. Quite naturally, since Sophia means at once knowledge, doctrine, and wisdom. The Sophios is a wise man, or the Sophos is a wise man. The Theosophoi are those knowing divine things. And that, however, does not necessarily mean theologians. It would be interesting to systematically trace the use of this word by religious authors from the beginning of Christianity until the Renaissance. We would see that it occasionally differs from the sense of its eponym theology, such as we understand it today. Theosophy is distinguished from theology. Theosophy is distinguished from theology to suggest more or less the existence of knowledge of a Gnostic type. It is in this sense, for example, that Pseudo-Dionysius tends to use it in the 6th century. Okay? This is just explaining to you what theosophy is. Okay? So, again, now, why did we look at that? We looked at this so that you would know that theosophy goes back to, it's mentioned and documented as being spoken of in the 6th century, right? In this sense, for example, that Pseudo-Dionysius tends to use the word theosophy in the 6th century. See that? This is very important. Why? And it says the word theosophy, Theosophia, is used by several church fathers, both Greek and Latin, as a synonym for theology. The reason that's important is they try to tell you that anybody dealing with theosophy actually is dealing with her, Helena Blavatsky. What they've done is they've confused the contemporary theosophical movement with theosophy itself. So they try to say that because Alvin Boyd Kuhn got his degree in theosophy, that he's therefore dealing with the Theosophical Society, which was basically all of these nuts. There was a lot of these Egyptomaniacs, and a lot of them, they were just a bunch of nuts, right? So no, not at all. Okay? Theosophy goes back right here. This is why I put this here, right? Early church fathers, 3rd, 4th century, Pseudo-Dionysius, 6th century CE, they're talking about theosophy. Helena Blavatsky had nothing to do with theosophy. So stop, again, you know what this means, right? You know what this means. For those of you who might not understand it, this still got to go down. Another shattered Christian lie. Why? Because Helena Blavatsky did not invent theosophy. It's been around since the early church fathers were using it in the 3rd and 4th century. Just like in the 3rd century, Origen was talking about Jesus hiring himself out to Egypt to be a servant, and Mary getting kicked out of the house because she got convicted of adultery. And that Jesus learned his powers in Egypt, went back to Palestine, and declared himself a god. That was being talked about in the 3rd century and the 2nd century when Celsus was purportedly saying it and wrote about it. And it was still such a problem, and so many people apparently had picked up on it, that it was a problem 70 years later. If it was false, I don't think it would have been such a problem. So yeah, that whole lie about Helena Blavatsky and the 19th century and Alvin Boyd Kuhn, and that's all bullshit. It's a lie. Yeah, so they wrote and they said what they had to say. Big deal. It's a free country. It's a free world. In the West, people can write about what they want to write about. Doesn't mean that you have to try to lump us in with them. It's retarded. Do we lump you in with Jim Jones? You're all cults. Christianity ain't nothing but a cult. Okay? Theosophical Society, 1875, 19th century. No. Theosophy, early church fathers talking about it, 3rd, 4th century. How do we know? Because it's documented in this book, Access to Western Esotericism, by the State University of New York series, Western Esoteric Traditions, Professor Antoine Favre-Sorbonne. Okay? Egypt was the home of thaumaturgy and theosophy, which means the wisdom of God, and proverbial for its secret theological wisdom. We do well to remember the widespread influence of Egyptian theosophical beliefs in their Hellenistic shape when we encounter Pauline statements that Christ is the power, dynamics, and the wisdom, Sophia of God. So what he's saying is that when Paul said that, he was basically speaking the language of ancient Egypt. When they say that, they have the mind of Christ, the wisdom of God. All right, it has nothing to do with Blavatsky. And it has nothing to do with Alvin Boyd Kuhn, who did his dissertation on theosophy to get his PhD at Columbia University. The same Alvin Boyd Kuhn who said the entire Christian Bible, creation, legend, descent into, and exodus from Egypt, ark and flood, allegory, Israelite history, Hebrew prophecy and poetry, gospel epistles, and revelation imagery, all are now proven to have been the transmission of ancient Egypt scrolls and papyri into the hands of later generations, which knew neither their true origin nor their fathomless meaning. Now, just because Alvin Boyd Kuhn said it doesn't mean we got the idea from him. Pastor Eric Mason, Pastor Jerome Gay Jr., stop telling your shattered Christian lies. We didn't get this idea from them. They just happen to be smart enough to figure it out in the 19th century. You dummies can't figure it out in the 21st century. Back in the book. Let me make sure that I'm here. Because the transition from paganism, for which the name of Isis stood, was a stealthy and insensibly prolonged blending rather than a sudden disruption, statues like the one in Paris may stay inside Christian churches without arousing comment. Images of Isis could become Black Madonnas. Even more striking, however, was the readiness to build the churches themselves at or near the sites of Isis. Those are the Isis temples. Augustine clarifies this practice, the early church father. Temples, idols, and groves, he states, are turned over not to private individuals, but to the glory of God. So also Pope Gregory informs the abbot Meletus on his departure for Britain that temples are to be purified from devil worship and dedicated to the God of Christianity. So that's what they did. They literally went in and took over the temples. They didn't change and build new churches. No. Just like they didn't change and bring a new religion. They did what they did. Or they appropriated the temples just like they appropriated the religion. right? It is his hope that the people, seeing that their hallowed shrines are not destroyed, will abandon idolatry, and resort to these places as before. So basically, they just tried to replace the priesthood and the infrastructure. The policy of ecclesiastical authority was clearly, as far as possible, to conserve and not to pull down what was there. Above the sacred edifice of the old faith, now there rose that of the new faith, literally as well as figuratively on top of it. But the fact chiefly stressed by the new dispensation was not sudden change, but the maintenance of services as before. For the takeover was not to mean an utter break with the past. So you see, it was a takeover. Christianity was a religious takeover, not to they didn't get rid of the old religion, they just took it over. That's it. This is understanding your religion in proper perspective when you look at Christianity. And this is what Professor Witt is telling you. It was a religious takeover. They didn't change the religion. They didn't change the temples where the churches were. They just took them over. What you call a hostile takeover. It was about economics, money, power, but money, wealth. Yes. I keep telling you people, if you don't understand a temple-based economy, you won't understand the motives about why people did what they did. It was a temple-based economy. So all of this crap that these modern Christians are running around saying today and thinking today, it's a bunch of bullshit. When we say, oh, you got your religion from Egypt, and when we say, oh, you got your religious motifs from Egypt, if we say, oh, you got your religious text from Egypt, and then you look at us like we're crazy, but all of this literature is here pointing to the connection between Christianity and Egypt, whether it's Celsus, whether it's the Coptic church's tradition of him being born there, this goes on and on and on. It just doesn't stop. It's countless. But you look at us like we're the aberration. You're the aberration on the block. You're like an insane person walking through life thinking everybody else is crazy. No, it's you. It is you. According to the documentation, it is you. I'm going by the documentation. If you can go by your documentation, we can go by our documentation. You're dealing with whatever that thing is. You think it's not history, right? We're dealing with history books. History. The historical record. What is being documented for us to help us understand what these Christians are trying to say, so that when we encounter them, we can let them know, okay, I hear what you're saying, but here's where you're wrong. Or let me help you put that in context. Let me put that in context for you. Okay? Let's continue. Almost to the end, because I want to finish this bad boy so I can get to the real presentation tomorrow. Here we go. Yes. Right? The takeover was not to mean an utter break with the past. And here you can see. You know, Jabari says, he always says? They put crosses on our temples. They put crosses on our temples. Yes, they did. I'm sure you've seen this before, where they defaced the triad of Thebes, Mut, Khans, and Amun. Right? Pretty sure that's who it was, Mut, Khans, and Amun. Oh, come on. Right? Right here, they put the crosses into the temples in Egypt and Africa. They really put those crosses, and I'm going to show you where those crosses actually come from. They're telling you a crucifixion story. I'm going to show you where they got their symbols from. You better believe it, Jack. Okay? And they said in Hoffner's invaluable collection of the literary sources, Isis needs more pages of the index than any other name. That's how powerful she was. When they were doing a poll or a systematic study of all of the ancient gods in the ancient world, in antiquity, in late antiquity, what they discovered was that Isis, her worship was far wider than the worship of anyone else. And that's why they said her Isis needs more pages of the index than any other name. That's a powerful statement to make. So here we conclude with the Isis question. Okay? There's actually more. But in fact, let's look at this. Hold on one second. Because there is more. This is why Martin Luther King, in his book, right, in the book of Martin Luther King's papers, which I always reference, the papers of Martin Luther King Jr., Volume 1, Called to Serve, 1929 to June 1951, page 298 to 307. Cults that influenced early Christianity, named by Martin Luther King Jr. Look at number 3. The influence of Osiris and Isis on Christianity, pages 302 and 304. But wait a minute. I thought they said that Isis and Osiris had no influence on Christianity. Isn't that what they say? Over and over and over again. Another shattered Christian lie. Unless you think Martin Luther King is a liar, because Damon Richardson tried to make him one, tried to lie and say, oh, Martin was just parroting the anti-Semitism of Protestant Germany, full of shit. That's what he is. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to show you where Martin learned his from. I'm not going to show you tonight, but this is where he was studying at Coastal Theological Seminary. In 1950, Martin Luther King was saying this in 1950. Martin Luther King was talking about the influence of Osiris and Isis on Christianity. What did he say? On page 302, the Egyptian mysteries. He said the Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris exerted considerable influence upon early Christianity. That's page 302. Martin Luther King Jr. also said, we find that there was a festival held each year in Egypt celebrating the resurrection of Osiris, page 302. Page 303, Christians unconsciously perpetuate the worship of Osiris in modern times. That's Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X didn't even say that. This is not the only point in which the religion of Osiris and Isis exerted influence on Christianity. That's Martin Luther King Jr. People, Martin Luther King Jr. He's speaking about it right here. The Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris exerted considerable influence upon Christianity. These two great Egyptian deities whose worship passed into Europe were revered not only in Rome, but in many other centers where Christian communities were growing up. Isn't that what we just finished reading, the whole book by Isis in the Ancient World by R.E. Witt? Now, how come Martin Luther King knew this in 1950? And these idiots try to sweep it under the rug today. That's why they never mention Martin Luther King. They're jealous of him and they hate him. You never hear these Christian pastors mention Martin Luther King because he told the truth. This is his own words. He tells the whole story. I'm not even going into it right now. He even talks about the palace at Byblos. I'm too tired to go into it. I'll mention this some other time. We'll go back. Okay? This is it, people. I'm not even going into it. I'm too tired. I literally am too tired. And I realize that. When I'm tired, I'm tired, you know. So, you know, I wanted to do this just as a prerequisite for what's coming. I'll be back tomorrow with the presentation that this was just the preview for. This whole ISIS in the ancient world, I wanted to cover that book first. What I'm doing, I'm taking you through a journey through my whole library. That's what we're going to do on this channel. I'm going to take you through a journey through my own personal library. And it's going to blow your mind. Trust me when I tell you. But I want to do it in phases, step by step. So I'm not going to be reacting to every little response video these intellectual midgets do, because that will slow down the process. When I have time, I'm going to respond to them. Every little video they make, every little Facebook comment they make, I'm going to use that as a monument to their ignorance. Okay? So, with that, I'm going to look in the... I appreciate you, Sammy. Very much so. Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's another thing that they lie about. They lie about the Hellenization of Christianity and of Judaism. They try to, remember I told you, they try to take things that are very important and they try to make them into footnotes. This is what the Christian strategy is in the Christian scholarly world. They take the things that really, really impacted Christianity, that were seminal to Christianity, and they dwindle them down and they systematically diminish them. And they'll wait 25 years to do it. They'll put a 25, 30-year process in place to do it, so that 30 years down the line, they can say, you know, it used to be thought about 100 years ago. This is what, what's this guy's name? I think Wright, Professor Wright, Dr. Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T. He's one of their scholars. He says, it used to be that 50 to 100 years ago that people thought the mystery cults somehow influenced Christianity, and that the Christians, the further they got away from the original crucifixion, they encountered pagan beliefs and they were therefore influenced. And this is what used to be thought about 100. Bullshit. BS. That's what they do. They lay, I call it lying in wait. Laying in wait. They lay in wait for enough time to go by so that they can make these proclamations with no evidence backing up any of it. No evidence backing up any of it. You know? So we're going to look at some of their best scholars, their best Christian scholars, and we're going to pick apart their BS. Okay? I'm going to introduce you to it. So, now, oh, that's a very worthy subject. We're going to go into that on here as well. That's a very, very worthy subject matter to discuss, because these modern Egyptians do see us as a threat. You know, I mean, when I say that these modern Egyptians see us as a threat, I actually showed them real Egyptian statues in private collections of Black Egyptians, the Ustabis, the Shabtis. These are the funerary dolls that the Egyptians used to make of themselves to be in their tombs with them. And as I showed them, they literally said, those are fakes. I said, wow. They said that those are fakes. The Black Shabtis, the Black statues in private collections around the world in museums, they said those are fakes. The Egyptians were not Black. These people are sick. You got a lot of sick people in the world. Being Black in this world is not easy, because many people are not just opposed to your presence in the present. They are opposed to your presence in the future and in the past. That's deep. And most of us are too stupid to understand the temporal playing field, to understand you got to claim all of that. Because that's where your power lies, not in Jesus. Not in Jesus. What was the last thing Jesus said? Father, why have thou forsaken me? Someone got put on the cross, and the one who set him up that got put on the cross forsook him. That's what Jesus had to say. Now everybody else tells the story afterward. But actually, Jesus never, look, y'all better remember, Jesus never wrote no book. So when people talk about, oh, I'm following Jesus, you are not following Jesus. You are following people who had stuff to say about him. And these people are so nebulous that they couldn't even put their real name to the book. Ain't no Mark, ain't no Matthew, ain't no Luke, ain't no John. We know all that stuff is pseudonyms. Pseudepigrapha is what it really is. Pseudepigrapha. A false superscription. Writing something at one period and attributing it to someone else in the past. That's what those New Testament books are. It's pseudepigrapha, all of them. And I'm going to tell you the truth about Paul's letters too, because that's what they really love to stand on. They're not going to tell you the truth about Paul's letters because they're too stupid to know anything about ancient literary genres. Not understanding that there was a particular genre of book writing that was done in letter form, as if you were sending letters. These idiots think they're reading real letters. That's how stupid they are. And then I'm also going to show you the truth about the dates of all of this literature that they claim. They love to tell you, oh, we have first century manuscripts. We have stuff that was written 50 years right after Jesus died. AD, 20 years after Jesus died. They take it to weeks, months. Oh, yeah, months after Jesus died, this is what was happening. They're full of shit. All of them. Every last one. They're all full of it. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate for you. I'm talking about real scholarship. Okay? Now, I have a bowl of grits, salmon, egg whites, and avocado sitting on my oven waiting for me. I'm going to go chow down because that's all I've been thinking about for the past 30 minutes. But I finally came and I finished out this whole ISIS in the ancient world, which is something I really wanted to do, just so I can say I did it. I went through that book because the whole exercise is to go through my whole library. I don't know how many books we'll get through, right? I'm, who knows? On planet Earth these days, things are, woo! You don't know what's next. So, I just wanted to have this for you. I hope you like the whole shattered Christian lies thing that I put together for you. I said, Sanetta got bombs, so I wanted to have my own thing, right? So I got another shattered Christian lie. I hope y'all like that, because that's what's up. I love it. Another shattered Christian lie. You heard? You can get Codex Game Over. Oh, by the way, I revised Codex Game Over. I did an updated version because I think somebody did a justified critique of the first one. And I really respected the critique. And so I revised it so that the newer version, you could see the more accurate, listings of the original Egyptian text, the more accurate statements and the more accurate, because it's still the same thing. Whereas, if I'm going to show you, if I'm going to do that one, I don't know. I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. I might want to do that as a class strictly for people who have the book, but or I might just want to do it just as a book so people can get it, the revised version, because the revised version is awesome. It's awesome. I mean, you really want to have both, but the revised version is going to be the one. That's what's up. You heard? Absolutely shattered. So we ain't got to deal with that no more. Only that 19th century claim, right? We don't have to deal with that anymore. That's done. That is done. Unless they choose to. One thing about a Christian, Christians do not believe in ceasing lying. They believe in lying eternally. So don't expect them to stop saying it, even though I proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's a lie. As if we didn't know about Celsus before Zeitgeist. As if we didn't know about the tradition of the Coptic Church having Jesus born and raised in Egypt. As if we didn't know that before Zeitgeist, right? As if we didn't know all of these other affiliations of Jesus with Egypt that were made in the distant past, 2nd century, 3rd century, so forth and so on, right? 4th century even, which is when you get the Coptic tales, the Coptic tradition. So who needed Zeitgeist? Like we weren't, it's like by their logic, listen how stupid they are. By their logic, there was no Kemetic community before Zeitgeist. By their logic. That's how stupid they are. That's how stupid they are. Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark and the whole family, the Abed, they've been taking us, our families, back to Egypt since the 70s. Since the 70s and the 80s. And you think we needed to wait for Zeitgeist to make our assertions? You're a special kind of stupid. And somebody should tell you that. I just did. You're a special kind of stupid. There's no need to be stupid. There's no need to be stupid. None at all. Respect the documentation. Respect the scholarship. And just get your scholarship up. If you're going to disagree, come with real stuff, solid stuff. Right? But don't just repeat lies because they sound good, because they're convenient. And these morons, guaranteed, they are short, yellow school bus type morons. So I don't want to crap on people who have to take the short bus, but you know what I mean. Like, they're still going to repeat this. Oh, they got it from Zeitgeist. Oh, they got it from Gerald Massey and all this other nonsense. So whatever. Because what I got coming, they ain't going to be able to refute. Okay? And as we going to see, it ain't got anything to do with anything they're talking about. With that, folks, for those of you who appreciate the platform and who want to show love, please do not hesitate to visit the Cash App and just show your love. You know, show that you believe in the platform, and just remember that you know, it's not free, because for me to teach for free means that, you know, it means that I want to live on the street. For me to teach for free means that I don't want to take care of my family. For me to teach for free means that, you know, y'all don't want to see me up here. That's what that means. So, absolutely. $ Shakka-Ahmose. Everybody has to pay. Just pay what you want. That's it. Pay whatever you want, but just remember to pay. Okay? So with that, guys, I will see you tomorrow. And I love you all. That includes the Christians too. I love them too. I have to. Because, I mean, they make this exciting. You know? And we all, believe it or not, we give them purpose. They give us purpose. And, you know, don't let nobody lie to you. We all need each other. It's a beautiful thing. Without each other, we have no conversation. We have no discourse. We have no exchanges. Right? We give each other meaning and purpose. And in ancient Egypt, that was everything. Meaning was everything. So with that, Anket, that means victory. Anket. Okay? I'm out. Peace. Deuces. I'm about to go eat. What to eat? Tear it up. Tear it up. Tear it up. Hungry. Love you all. Hotep, Uncle Justin.